Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. We'll talk to former news anchor Catherine Anaya about her career and why she decided to leave television news. And a film captures a complex aspect of the Vietnam War and the legacy of Latino veterans and their families during the conflict. All this coming up next on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Thank you for joining us. In July, Catherine Anaya left the anchor desk after more than 10 years at CBS 5, KPHO TV, and after more than 2 decades on the air in television news. Join me as we get to know Catherine Anaya.
Nice to see you again.
Well, it's good to have you on the show. It's
you.
hard to believe that you stepped down already. I mean, I think people are not accepting of it.
Oh, well, that's very sweet of you. It's been a very big life change for me, but I'm enjoying every moment of it. And to be there for my family is reinforcement every single day that I did the right thing.
Before we get into the details of your career and why you decided to step down at this time, give us just a thumbnail sketch of how you got into the business and a little bit of your background.
Well, I started out in print journalism, actually, at USC. I wrote for the Daily Trojan, and I thought that was going to be what I would do with my career, is to be a print reporter. And then somebody presented the idea of broadcast journalism to me. So the more I investigated it, the more, they like to say that when the bug's bitten you, that's it. I mean, you're done. And that happened to me. So I became very involved in finding my way through journalism. When I graduated, after I'd done several internships, I basically sent my tape out everywhere across the country. And the first job offer that I received was from South Texas, Harlingen, McAllen, Brownsville is what the market's called. It's right on the border of Texas and Mexico. And I worked there for a year, and I anchored the morning news. And then I went to South Bend, Indiana, fish out of water, USC and Notre Dame territory. And I was there for a year.
That must have been tough.
That was a little tough, and the snow added to that too. So I anchored morning news there, and then I came here to Phoenix, which was from 92 to 98, where I anchored morning news, noon news, and I reported as well. And when I left there in 98, I went to Los Angeles, and I worked for the CBS station in LA, which was coming home for me, coming full circle. And then in 2003, I got the call to come back to Phoenix, and so I've been here ever since, and I was with Channel 5 for more than 12 years. It was a glorious run and a tremendous career.
So your entire career pretty much as the anchor of the news?
Yes.
Yeah. You've always looked very youthful. You still look very youthful.
Thank you.
Was that, though, initially a hindrance? Were there any problems in credibility, for example?
Well, I think I probably imposed a lot of that on myself. I had hair down to here, and I sounded like I was 12, even though I was 22 when I started out, and I probably looked like I was 10. So nobody ever said, you need to do such and such. But I just felt like if I'm going to be behind the anchor desk every single morning, I should probably look a little more than 15. So I cut my hair up to here, and I started working on my voice a little bit, keeping it down here instead of up here. But that was it. I think it's actually probably served me well, looking a little younger than I was, because I was able to have a long career. Now, of course, I'm not the youngest person in the room, so that's a little difficult to get used to, but no, it wasn't really a problem.
So speaking of things in the room, the elephant in the room is why, and I know that you said it was family. We've got a picture of your family. Mm-hmm. What was it that led you to make this decision? What aspect of family life?
Well,
you've done a wonderful job already. Your daughter's a freshman at USC, as I understand, but you still have a young man at home.
I do. I have a son at home who's almost 13. It's a very critical point in his life, and their father passed away unexpectedly in October, my ex-husband.
The picture we have on screen is your current husband,
It's
right?
my current husband,
and your 2
Doug.
children.
Yes, I've been remarried a little over 2 years, and that's my daughter on the left and my son on the right. But when he passed away, we were at the memorial service, and my daughter talked about in her eulogy how he was there for everything, and it's really true. I think I gave myself a pass for the many things that I had to miss because of my career because he was there. I could always justify, well, yes, I wasn't there, but he was. And now he wasn't going to be there anymore. And I think hearing her say those words just resonated with me in so many ways. I thought to myself, if she has to give my eulogy tomorrow, she wouldn't be able to say the same thing. And so it affected me very deeply more and more as each day progressed. And I would talk to my husband about, what do you think about me leaving? Because I think my son needs me right now, especially with his sister going off to college. He's at that critical turning point. I didn't want him to be 18 years old and be lost and wonder why I chose to put a paycheck for him. If I can step in now and be that present parent for him, I can have a really positive influence, not just on raising a really good boy, but a fine man. So that's why I did it.
And I think your last day was what, July 10th?
July 10th, yes.
So what's it been like since then?
Well, it's been a little bit of a challenge, I'm going to be honest. He's not used to having me around all the time, and he has basically said there are days when I'm quite annoying. I am so up in his business, but I think he's also seeing the benefits of having me there. First of all, I've seen a complete change in his attitude toward me. It's not just, why are you saying that when you're not here to back it up? I mean, I am there. The minute he gets home from school, he is my number one focus. And so we've seen the progression in his grades. We've seen the progression in his attitude towards seeing me at his baseball games all the time, and not just being there, but knowing who everybody is.
So the decision was validated.
Absolutely, every single day.
Let's talk about your career.
Yes.
We've got one picture of you on the set that we want to put up right now, but talk about the highlights and any difficulties that you ran into. I mean, it's a lengthy career. You're one of the most recognized faces and voices in television news in Arizona.
Well, thank you.
Give us a summary.
I think probably the highlights for me are taking ordinary people doing extraordinary things and taking their stories and really bringing them to life. I think that I've had an impact that way. At least that's the response that I've gotten from the community. I think also being a community-minded journalist, I've been very involved in the community. I've tried to use my position as a voice for people who normally wouldn't have that voice. So I think that's probably been the highlight for me. The challenges are probably the same challenges that most people have in this business, and that is that you work from contract to contract. And so, your life as it is never really feels permanent, because you may or may not be renewed the next time your contract comes around. So that's a tough way to live, and in a roundabout way, it probably led to my divorce. First time I was married, because it's just a very tough way to live. But I think when I came back to Arizona, I really made being involved in the community a priority for me, unlike in the past, because I understood that it's more about what you do with the job than the job title itself. And I really felt like I was put in that position for a higher purpose than just what you see on TV.
And speaking of being involved in the community, we have another picture of you with a group, and they're part of an organization that you helped found.
Yes, so I founded a group more than 5 years ago. It's called the Sisterhood of Superwomen. And basically what I found when I was involved in the community is you have these tremendous nonprofit organizations and people doing great things, but they fall under the radar. Nobody's telling their stories. Nobody knows about them. And so I chose to tell their stories through a weekly segment on Channel 5 called Better Arizona. But that stemmed from my involvement in the community. So I thought, well, if I start this group of these great, powerful, passionate women who all have a common goal, and that is to improve our neighborhoods and our community and the place that we're raising our children, to come together once a month, pick a different charity every month, and learn about them, but then also support them financially. And it doesn't have to be a large number. It can be $5, $50, whatever it is. But we take that knowledge and take it back to our respective communities. And now you've had friendships that have formed from that, and you've had volunteerism that's formed from that. And news stories or potential donors that may have connections that we don't even know about. So I really feel like I've helped take some of those smaller nonprofits and given them a little bit of a bigger platform.
And you're continuing to be involved in the community, and you're still working. I think people should know that
Yes.
that you've got a media company and you're
Yes.
doing things. Tell us briefly about that.
Well, the media company is basically, it's Four Hearts Media for my family, and it's basically everything that I've been doing. It's video storytelling, the speaking, the emceeing, the hosting, media training. I write a blog that's very personal. So I've just basically taken it and put it under one umbrella, That's my business. I say that's my part-time job, and my full-time job is my son. I just was elected to the Make-A-Wish Arizona board, which when I decided to step down from the news desk, I was approached by various people wanting me to join boards, and you can only stretch yourself so thin.
So you don't want to get right back in the same situation you were.
So I thought, let me pick one, and actually I'm on 2 boards, but let me pick one where I feel like there's enough diversity under that one nonprofit that I can affect a lot of people.
Catherine, speaking of diversity, and we're almost out of time, but has your Latina background ever been an issue during your 25 years in broadcasting?
Not a major issue. I was the first Hispanic anchor in South Bend, Indiana, which was one of the reasons why I went there, because I thought, wow, what a phenomenal thing to be part of history. It was only a 4% Hispanic population, but they allowed me to tell stories from the Hispanic perspective, which I think was a tremendous opportunity for me to maybe erase some of the preconceived notions that people might have about the community. And so I think that I've actually used it to do more good than anything else. I haven't really had much pushback. You have your small number of people who they're going to push back against anything.
Well, you've done very well. You've
Thank
done
you.
good and you've done well, and we're delighted to have you on our show and
Thank
wish
you.
you the best in your
It's a
future.
pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
A few years ago, 9 boys from the local high school joined the Marines.
Just on my street, I think there's only 2 people out of 12 houses that didn't have somebody in the service.
You couldn't conceive that maybe one of them or any of them would be killed.
Now picture yourself climbing up these hills when we were young with 80 pounds of gear on us. And you're coming as a platoon or a company, and then you're moving up to take the high ground. They would leave us like on this hill, and we had to get to that hill and take the top of the mountain, and that's where the battles would ensue up there.
I already had in my mind that one day if there was a war, I would go to that war and I would die as a hero.
In my parents' generation, they all served. There was a lot of gratitude for the opportunities that we had here in this country, because my parents were born here, but my grandparents came here from Mexico. Turns out I was qualified to go in the Navy flight training.
The Defense Department just moments ago announced that 2 Californians, Navy Lieutenants Everett Alvarez Jr. and Richard C. Sater, are the missing pilots of the 2 United States planes shot down in the raid over the North Vietnamese coast.
When my brother was first captured 50 years ago, I remember thinking, I wish I was a man so I could go and fight the enemy. Who knew that it was going to continue for years and years and years?
The film clip you just saw is from the film On Two Fronts, Latinos in Vietnam. It premieres next Tuesday on Arizona PBS. The film captures a complex aspect of the Vietnam War, telling the stories of Latino veterans and their families during the conflict. Joining me to talk about the film are Oscar Urrea, U.S. Army Vietnam War veteran born in Morenci, Arizona; Antonio Santiago, also known as Tony the Marine, a United States Marine Corps Vietnam War veteran; and Kyle Longley, ASU professor in the School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies and School of Politics and Global Studies. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Horizonte to talk both about the film and what went into it and your own personal stories. And Kyle, speaking of stories, the film is based in part on a book you've written about the young men who went from Morenci to serve in the war. Give us a thumbnail sketch of that.
Well, when Milene first came, the director, Moreno, came and she showed an interest in this story of the Morenci Marines, story of 9 young men from Morenci, Arizona, who went off to...
This is a story you wrote.
Yes, a book called The Morenci Marines, and it was 9 young men from the small mining camp of Morenci, Arizona in 1966, go off to boot camp together and then all end up in Vietnam, where 6 out of the 9 die in combat.
And we've got a picture of some of them that we're going to put up on the screen while you're talking.
And so you have this, and you also have another book that she based it on called Grunts, the American Combat Soldier in Vietnam, that I wrote. So about 4 years ago, she came to me, and several of my colleagues are people who have focused on Vietnam, and asked us to help with this process. It builds off the Ken Burns documentary on World War II, where Latinos basically were ignored. So she's basically got out ahead of this issue as Burns starts to prepare a new documentary on Vietnam, and covered primarily the soldier story, but also those who were in the United States that were also protesters. So you've got a nice blend of this story of Latinos from across the United States, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Dominicans, many different groups that are represented, although the story is strongly based in Greenlee County and also here in Arizona and California.
So the two fronts in the title of the film are a reference to the battles in Vietnam and then the protest movement?
And the battles back home, when the veterans come home, they face discrimination that they had not faced to the same degree in Vietnam. When they return, the battle for citizenship begins. So they're on two fronts. So there is the protesters aspect of it, but it's also the veterans aspect of having to fight militarily, but also continue the fight for citizenship, for equal rights.
Oscar, your story is part of the movie. You're from Morenci. You weren't one of the Marines. You were in the Army, but while the discrimination may have been worse when you came back, there were issues that you faced while you were there.
Yes, there were issues, and most importantly, I think it was the issue of what you were going to be doing once you arrived there. You had your MOS, Military Occupational Specialty, as we call it, and based on where you were needed and the type of job you were going to do, pretty much dictated if you're going to be out in the field assigned to an infantry or artillery unit or stay in the rear doing something else.
Well, you were trained at great expense by the U.S. government as a cryptologist, but you ended up being in the infantry once you got to Vietnam.
Yes, I was attached to an infantry unit in Vietnam. So all them dollars kind of just floated off in outer space. I said, wow, this is the way they treat our fighting soldiers, which I didn't mind. I was trained to handle commo and crypto.
How many years were you there?
In Vietnam?
Yes.
I just did one tour.
And I want to talk about your experiences coming back because you've remained actively involved on behalf of veterans. But before we do that, Tony the Marine, your story is not focused on the Southwest as a big part of the movie is.
Exactly.
But you're from New York?
Yes, I was born and raised in New York.
One of many Puerto Ricans who served in Vietnam.
Yes. When I was a kid, I always had in mind I was going to join the Marine Corps. That was one of my things. And when the United States went to Vietnam, I decided to volunteer. I wasn't expecting really the racism that went on in the service and over there in Vietnam, and that had an impact. I also was impacted by the fact that the cultural difference between the Puerto Ricans that are born in New York, they call us Puerto Ricans even though we were born in New York, and the Puerto Ricans that were born in the island.
And there were large numbers of both who ended up in Vietnam.
That's one of the things. One of the things is that even though a lot of people are unaware of the contributions which Latinos have made to the war efforts, different war efforts of the United States, there were so many Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans and other Latinos in the armed forces that I was completely, I am completely surprised that fact is always, it's never mentioned.
And that's become a particular focus for you. I mean, you've written things about the contributions of Latinos in the various wars, not just the Vietnam War.
Right, exactly. I have dedicated practically my life to writing about these unknown facts about the Latinos, about Latinos' contribution to the American Civil War, the Revolutionary War, everything, and a lot of these heroes who are unknown to the common public. Like, for instance, there's so many Latinos that have won the Medal of Honor, which is the highest decoration, but yet you never hear the stories. You never see the stories in television or movies. So many Latinos have died, for example, in the Vietnam War. You never hear their stories. You never see that. So the public, in general, they probably wonder, what did Latinos ever do for our country?
Well, and it's not just the public in general. Oscar, we mentioned that you've been involved with helping veterans from the war, and one of the things you ran into in gathering information from them was the number of times that veterans were saying, you know, I got a Bronze Star, I got a Silver Heart, and it wasn't reflected in their paperwork.
That is very true. As I process some other claims for disability and comp, and the problem that arises is this, that when the veteran has in the Marines, they have what they call a CAR, Combat Action Ribbon. The Army awards them it's a combat infantry badge.
And it's important.
It's
it helps if they're able to say, well, I got this medal or that medal.
And if it's on his DD-214,
and the problem is
the stressor is
not
already
always
there, you know, that he did serve in combat. But a lot of them, even though they were awarded Purple Hearts, Silver Stars, Bronze Stars with V devices, etc., they were never put into their DD-214s. So that makes it harder for them to start processing the paperwork. Because you know, when you go up for disability and comp, they want to know, were you in Vietnam, boots on ground, were you in a combat unit or whatever? And they say yes. Well, it doesn't show here, you know. So it just delays the process.
One of the many problems that the Vietnam vets have faced. Kyle, focusing still on Vietnam itself, Tony talked about some of the prejudice that went on, and it manifested itself, as I understand, not just in name calling and incidents like that, but in how Latino and African American troops were deployed.
Yes. When they arrived in Vietnam, many carried MOS of either 011 or 0311s, which are infantry. And usually you saw the infantry units predominantly composed of people who were of color, working class whites, farmers' kids. So, and then the rear echelons, the safer areas, would go to the more affluent, the ones with better education. So you see the combat, the one where you're going to be most likely to be out there humping your way through the jungle and under fire, being predominantly people like Oscar and Tony and others who came from working class backgrounds, from lower middle class backgrounds. So it was a selection. Plus the draft already discriminated to a large degree because many of the young men coming out of the Latino community in the 1960s were not looking to go to college. Those that did were able to avoid the draft. We know the use of the National Guard and other things gave people a way to avoid having to serve in Vietnam. Unfortunately, then it fell preponderantly on people from the farms, from the barrios, from the inner cities, and the working class neighborhoods.
We've got a few more pictures I want to get to quickly if I can. One of them, Tony, is I think you with a couple of other guys, and this is at the time you're the guy in the middle, right?
Yes, that's me in the middle. And right there by my side, the taller one, the other day I just happened to remember the names. I'm so bad.
Oh, that's
that,
okay.
But, no, but I did remember. His last name is Herrera, and the one that has his hand on my shoulder, his last name is Garza.
And we've got two other pictures I want to get to quickly about an activity you've been involved in, Oscar, involving dog tags. And this is a close-up of these dog tags. And then we've got another shot of you with another veteran putting these up. And this is in Arizona, right?
Clifton, Arizona.
Yeah, tell us very quickly about that.
Okay, this memorial was spearheaded by the gentleman you see there and other Vietnam vets from Clifton. And the whole concept was to start putting dog tags to honor those, the first group, to honor those, for example, the Morenci 9. But in Morenci and Clifton, we had others that had passed on. I think there was a total of 13 that had passed away during that war.
And this honors them.
Yes.
We're almost out of time. So Professor Longley, last question. We've got about 30 seconds. What's the significance of the film? What does it tell us that we don't already know?
I think it tells a lot. I think it brings out the Latino contribution, not just during Vietnam, and it's not just only going to be on the soldiers, but also the protesters, and that there was a Chicano and Latino community that was very active in relation to the war. They have been there, but their voices have not been heard to the degree that they deserve to be heard.
And in fact, just going back to the protest issue, one of the guys in the film, his sister was protesting at the same time.
Everett Alvarez. It's a great story.
It is a great story. It premieres next week, and thank you all for joining us on Horizonte to talk about it. And that is our show for tonight from all of us here at Horizonte and Arizona PBS. Thanks for watching. I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good evening.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.